Alchemy by Titus Burckhardt. From the century of enlightenment up to and including our own times, it has been customary to regard alchemy as a primitive precursor of modern chemistry. As a result of this, almost all the scholars who have concerned themselves with its literature have had no cause to see in it anything other than the earliest stages of later chemical discoveries. This one-sided way of looking at alchemy has at least had the merit of causing a distinction to be made between its corpus of traditional craft experience in the preparation of metals, colors, and glass, and the apparently irrational procedures which play a central part in alchemy as such. As this corpus of craft experience is known to be far from negligible, the alchemists' stubborn adherence to the chemically meaningless formulae of their magisterium could not fail to appear all the more peculiar. People readily came to the conclusion that an insatiable desire to make gold had persistently caused men to believe in a heap of fantastic prescriptions, which, rightly seen, were nothing more than a popular and superstitious application of the natural philosophy of the ancients, rather as if the alchemists had tried, partly by means of physical procedures and partly by means of magical conjurations, to lay direct hold on the Aristotelian materia prima, the ground of all things. It never seemed to strike anyone as in the least improbable that an art of the kind alleged should, despite all its folly and deceptions, have implanted itself for centuries on end in the most diverse cultures of East and West. On the contrary, people were much more inclined to take the view that until a century or so ago, all humanity had been dreaming a stupid dream, the awakening from which came only with our own times, as if the spiritual intellectual faculty of man, his power to distinguish real from unreal, were itself subject to some sort of biological evolution. This way of looking at alchemy is contradicted by a certain principle of unity running through alchemy itself, descriptions of the great work stemming from many cultures and many centuries evince, through an admitted multiplicity of symbols, certain unvarying basic features which are not to be explained empirically. In its essentials, Indian alchemy is the same as Western and Chinese alchemy, though set in a completely different spiritual climate, can throw light on both. If alchemy were nothing but a sham, its form of expression would betray arbitrariness and folly at every turn. But in fact, it can be seen to possess all the signs of a genuine tradition, that is to say, an organic and consistent, though not necessarily systematic, doctrine, and a clear-cut corpus of rules laid down and persistently expounded by its adepts. Thus, alchemy is neither a hybrid nor a haphazard product of human history, but, on the contrary, represents a profound possibility of the spirit and the soul. This is also the view of the self-styled depth psychology, which purports to find in alchemical symbolism a confirmation of its own thesis of the collective unconscious. According to this view, the alchemist, in his dreamlike search, brings to the light of day certain contents of his own soul, previously unknown to him, and thus, without consciously intending to do so, brings about a kind of reconciliation between his superficial, ego-bound, everyday consciousness and the unformed but form-seeking power of the collective unconscious. This reconciliation is supposed to give rise to an experience of inner fulfillment which subjectively takes the place of the alleged alchemical magisterium. This view, like the foregoing, is based on the assumption that the alchemist's prime intention was to make gold. He was considered to be ensnared in a form of madness or self-deception, and because of this to think and act as one who is in a dream. This explanation possesses a certain plausibility, since in one way it comes near to the truth, if only to depart from it immediately. It is true that the spiritual reality to which the alchemical work is a sort of initiation is something of which the beginner is more or less unconscious. It is something hidden deep in the soul. Nevertheless, this secret depth must not be confused with the chaos of the so-called collective unconscious, insofar as this somewhat elastic concept has any precise meaning. The alchemist's fountain of youth in no wise springs from an obscure psychic substratum. It flows from the same source as the spirit. It is hidden from the alchemist at the beginning of his work, not because it is below, but because it is above the level of his conscious mental processes. The hypothesis of the psychologists evaporates as soon as one realizes that the true alchemists were never ensnared in any wish-fulfilling dream of making gold, and that they did not pursue their goal like sleepwalkers or by means of passive projections of the unconscious contents of their souls. On the contrary, they followed a deliberate method, of which the metallurgical expression, the art of transmuting base metals into silver or gold, has admittedly misled many uninitiated inquirers, although in itself it is logical, and what is more, truly profound.